I haven't had communication with Banks for a long period of time, right?
He couldn't even tell you, like, at any point when you speak to him what the problem is. I put him, like, where I put Marquise.
You and Banks are not hanging out at the strip club.
50 Cent takes some responsibility for Lloyd Banks for toting Yayo.
What responsibility? Like a parent?
You're the leader.
What responsibility am I taking for him? Like, explain to me.
That you didn't encourage them to be independent.
Nah, that's not true.
Lloyd Banks is finally breaking his silence about what went down between him and 50 Cent, and this time, he's calling out the years of disrespect, the lies, and the way 50's been rewriting their history. When G-Unit first hit, it was one of the strongest movements in hip-hop. 50 was the face. Sure, but Banks brought the bars. His voice, delivery, and lyricism gave the crew real weight. They were brothers. Or at least that's what we thought. But after the fame came, things shifted. 50 started taking shots at Banks in interviews, calling him lazy and saying he didn't want success badly enough. He even clowned him in his book, making it sound like Banks just gave up on himself. At the time, Banks stayed silent, no social media rants, no clapbacks. Until now, in a recent interview, Banks laid it all out, saying 50 wasn't there during the hardest moments of his life, and that the lazy label wasn't just wrong, it was foul, and the truth. He had been putting in work this whole time, just not in the way 50 expected. Of course, 50 being 50, he didn't take that quietly. He fired back with more shade. So, what really happened? How did the G-Unit bond turn so toxic? And who's really telling the truth, 50 or Lloyd? Let's get into it.
The guy has Lazy Lloyd tattooed on his arm. He literally wears his laziness on his sleeve. He's always projected an unhelpful mixture of being both introverted and cocky at the same time.
For years, Lloyd Banks stayed quiet about his fallout with 50 Cent, but after 50 recently took an unprovoked shot at him, Banks decided it was time to set the record straight. During a recent tour stop, 50 name-dropped Lloyd and Young Buck in a behind-the-scenes Instagram video, and it came off like he was shading Lloyd's lack of success, and that's the big difference between them. Banks doesn't do social media drama. He's not out here getting petty in interviews or taking random jabs at 50. But, in a rare interview, when asked about their relationship, he finally addressed all the rumors, the disrespect, and the lazy label 50's been pushing for over a decade. And you could tell this wasn't just about old beef. It was personal. Banks made it clear. He wasn't lazy, he was grieving. Around the same time 50 was calling him unmotivated, Banks had just lost his father. He was dealing with real-life pain, and instead of getting support, he got thrown under the bus, not once, but repeatedly. Interviews, books, memes, 50 turned it into a whole campaign.
So, Banks' temperament was definitely a little crazy. I'm not saying anything here that I haven't said to Banks directly. Another time I sat down with him, just when IG was starting to pop off, and tried to drop this gem on him. You gotta get on Instagram, I encouraged him. You can be a little awkward in person, so this is actually a better way for you to communicate with people. Nah, I don't want to do what he said. Why not? You can literally put punchlines under your pictures, make some new fans. Nah, that's corny, he told me. When Banks made that comment to me, I realized he had gone as far as he can go. In fact, my exact thought was, this is someone I can't invest another minute or dollar in.
And while 50 admitted that Lloyd is a solid lyricist, he claimed Banks just doesn't have the natural charisma or the work ethic to be a star.
He's a very good lyricist. Among what are known as the punchline rappers who will end their bars with a funny or tongue-in-cheek line. Banks like to call himself the PLK, or Punchline King. I don't know if he's the king, but I'll give it to him that he's in the conversation. He is not, however, a great live performer, stylish dresser, or a domineering personality. So if he doesn't check those three boxes, how is he going to get bigger and become the star in real life he is?
However, according to Banks, 50 was never really there for him, not during the low points. Not when it truly mattered, and that cut deeper than any diss track. Banks also pushed back on the idea that he fell off. Since 2021, he's dropped 3 full albums as part of the course of the Inevitable series. Sure, there were no big radio singles or major label push, but it was pure bars and consistency. And if you've been paying attention, Banks never stopped rapping, he just stopped playing the industry game. That's the core of the issue. Banks isn't the kind of artist 50 wanted him to be. He's not flashy, not obsessed with visibility, and definitely not chasing viral moments. He's a rapper's rapper, focused on the craft, not the clout. But in 50's world, if you're not helping the empire grow, you're dead weight. And Banks, he wasn't trying to be a soldier anymore. To understand how it all started, you've got to go back to South Jamaica, Queens, where Banks, 50, and Tony Yayo came up together. These weren't industry-made relationships, they were neighborhood kids trying to make it out through music. When 50 blew up with Get Rich or Die Trying, he brought his people with him. G-Unit wasn't just a crew, it was a brand and a lifestyle. and when it came to bars, Banks was the standout. 50 had the hooks and charisma, but Banks had the cold delivery and razor-sharp wordplay fans respected. His mixtape run was legendary. Money in the Bank, the Cold Corner series, all of it. Then in 2004, Banks dropped The Hunger for More, which went platinum in under a month. On Fire was a hit. Karma, I'm So Fly, all classic Banks. At that point, it looked like the whole G-Unit empire was rising together. 50 was running the charts. Banks was solidifying himself as a serious MC. Yayo was doing his thing, and later Young Buck and Game joined in. They were everywhere: music, clothing lines, Reebok deals, even video games. The chemistry seemed unshakable, and Banks wasn't just riding the wave, he was helping build it. His voice and energy helped define the sound, and even 50 admitted early on that Banks was one of the best pure rappers in the crew. But fame changes everything. Over time, cracks began to show. Buck got kicked out. Game went rogue, G-Unit started to lose steam, and through it all, Banks began to pull back. He was never the loudest in the room, but now he was barely in the room at all. The fallout wasn't loud or messy, but the distance between him and 50 was obvious. The group stopped moving like a tight unit and started feeling like solo acts sharing a brand. According to ID, so much drama went down that there's zero chance of a reunion. Banks had stopped showing up to 50's events, stopped doing press, and to fans, it looked like he just didn't care anymore. But behind the scenes, the story was more complicated. Still, 50 kept doing interviews, throwing light, shade, and pushing the lazy narrative. He claimed he did everything possible to push Banks, but said Banks wasn't hungry enough, didn't want to evolve, and never understood the business side of the game.
Had communication with Banks for a long period of time, right?
He couldn't even tell you, like, at any point when you speak to him, what the problem is. I put him, like, where I put Marquise.
You and Banks are not hanging out at the strip club.
No, he goes though.
But you don't go.
No, I don't see me there. We went to Atlantic City. We was in it was a showcase. They expect a show to happen.
Performance.
Yeah, we will see you at the show tonight. And I go, they expect a show. Like, I was like, yo, call all of them, tell them to come here. When I asked Banks, like, when you go to perform your shows, you don't do this song. This is the hardest record on your album. And he's like, why? Cause you want it? I looked at it and I was like trying to understand where he was coming from. He had been on my last record. He's like, I ain't been on your record, this and that. And I was like, so what? You don't have to be on none of my records. Like, me being on your record is the favorite. I put you on a record with Eminem on my first album, fool. Don't nobody even know you. We were anticipating success, not as much success as we actually had. And it would have been sufficient if we had half.
In one interview, 50 said Banks had the talent but no hustle, and he even criticized him for refusing to get on social media. But for Banks, staying quiet was just who he was, a guy who kept to himself and worked in the background. He wasn't into industry politics, and he didn't care about playing the visibility game. To some fans, that made him real, but to 50, it made him a liability. Then came Hustle Harder, Hustle Smarter. In the book, 50 took it even further, saying both Banks and Yayo were stuck in the past and refused to adapt. He called Banks out by name, saying he was too comfortable and didn't want to grow. Basically, he painted him as a talented but wasted opportunity, someone who could have been huge but let it all slip away.
I was around 14 years old when Biggie and Pac were both popping, so that makes sense that they still resonate with him so deeply. I can relate. I still love the music from when I was that age too. The difference is I haven't patterned my career after KRS-One and Coogee Rap. What would be the point of that? They were both incredible in their moment, but I've always been concerned about creating my own moment rather than copying theirs. Years ago, I told Banks to film a video of his life and post it on YouTube. Introduce people to his lifestyle. Let the camera follow him around for a while and see how he moves. Maybe something he says or does will create a spark, go viral, and then he'll have some heat around him again. What I didn't want him to do was sit there writing punchline after punchline and then grow resentful when no one seemed to care about his mixtapes anymore. They say insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Before adding Biggie and Pac didn't do that shit. They're dead, my man, I told him. They died before this stuff was even invented. And how do you know they wouldn't be posting on IG if they were alive? It was a line of thinking that really blew my mind. It suggested that if Tupac was alive, he'd still be wearing leather vests and red bandanas tied around his head, sending girls his beeper number. Or that Biggie would still be wearing Gucci sweaters and playing Mortal Kombat 2 every night. In Banks' case, a lot of his failure to grow as an artist is connected to his emotional composition. Banks grew up in the same neighborhood as me, but was never a part of it in the same way. I actually hustled with his father. Banks was more content to stand on his porch and watching the world from there. There's nothing wrong with that, but it underscored a particular aspect of his personality. Banks wanted things to come to him, as opposed to going out and getting them for himself. That's not me trying to assassinate his character. The guy has Lazy Lloyd tattooed on his arm. He literally wears his laziness on his sleeve. He's always projected an unhelpful mixture of being both introverted and cocky at the same time. The kind of person most comfortable being a big fish in a small pond. If Banks was hanging out in the studio with a bunch of unknown MCs, he'd be very confident. He'd enjoy being the center of attention. But if I suddenly showed up, he'd feel like he got demoted. He'd be bitter. He didn't feel like the center of attention anymore. I get it. I can take up a lot of the air in the room. The problem is that he'd never fight to get some of that oxygen back, which is exactly what a star is supposed to do. I believe a true star must possess 4 fundamental abilities: create great material, be a high-energy live performer, have a unique appearance, and possess a strong personality. Tupac had all 4. So does Mary J. Blige. Chris Brown too. If I'm being honest in evaluating Banks, he possesses maybe one of those qualities.
This book was the first time 50 publicly put that much distance between himself and Banks, while Banks stayed quiet in public. Fans believe he addressed the fallout in his song, Stranger Things. This is exactly where Lloyd and 50 disagree. For Lloyd, being super famous doesn't equal success. Success means doing what you love and being able to provide for your family. Plus, Lloyd has already admitted to being lazy. He even got a Lazy Lloyd tattoo and talked about it in interviews, even when 50 used that label against him.
But when we came to that room, we talked about, I think I irritated him earlier, playing with the entourage, with Mo and them, because I look.
So, Lloyd doesn't deny that he's a laid-back kind of guy, but it's not just about being lazy. He just doesn't want to deal with all the drama that comes with being an artist. He wants to make music and let it speak for itself, but 50 saw that as a lack of ambition. There's another problem too. 50 has made it clear that loyalty is his #1 rule, and anyone who steps out of line gets cut off fast. In fact, he said in his book that he'd rather be held at gunpoint than be betrayed.
I'd rather be robbed at gunpoint than be betrayed. Not that I suggest you try it. At least getting robbed is exciting. There's an undeniable rush when somebody pulls out their piece and growls, "Get on the fucking floor." Once it's over, provided you don't get shot, you can go tell your friend, "Yo, they just stuck me up." Your pockets might be lighter, but you'll be much stronger overall, having survived the experience. Getting betrayed is different. You don't get a great war story out of it. I've never heard anyone get hyped telling their friends, "Yo, you won't believe this, but I just got backstabbed by my mans." There are no stripes earned for that shit. When you open yourself up to someone, either financially or emotionally, and they go left on you, it's a different kind of pain, even more dramatic than a stick-up kid physically taking something from you. Like Malcolm X said, to me, the thing that is worse than death is betrayal. You see, I can conceive death, but I could not conceive betrayal.
Basically, 50 feels like he gives everything to his people and is even willing to risk his life for them. So when those same people betray him, to 50, that's worse than death.
Because I find betrayal so painful, I put incredible thought and consideration into the people who surround me. As I detailed in this chapter, when I was first coming up, I made a mistake of confusing loyalty and location. It's a miscalculation a lot of people make. One, to believe that just because someone is from the same streets as you, that they're gonna have your back forever. I learned the hard way that that's not the case. I think everyone's a little afraid of being too trustful, but I'm definitely worse than most. In my life, I feel like I've been betrayed by people I deserve better from. People I've given money to, opportunities to, love to, even life to. Because of that, for a long time, the only thing I had faith in was money. I only trusted the paper that says, "In God we trust." This is one of the reasons the theme of betrayal is so prominent in my show Power. It's an issue that's always on my mind, so much so that I even called the last season The Final Betrayal.
So, it's not just Lloyd Banks 50 sees betrayal as an unforgivable crime, no matter who it comes from. This is the same man who cut off his own son, Marquise, because he felt he wasn't loyal enough.
Well, actually, your son wants to sit down with you.
No, he doesn't. See, Charlamagne, you call me. You don't call TMZ to say you want to sit down. Think about it. You know, he wants some attention. And it's okay, you can have as much of that if you want. You know, it's just like he's been trained to believe what you see him say in that interview, that what he was saying, he's been trained to believe that for a long time. Like, you don't just wake up and say, oh, well, I don't believe what I've been believing forever.
But never be open to it?
No, I don't think the relationship works. Look, for a long time, I went running behind him. Went places that he went, and he left the places.
So if 50 is willing to turn his back on his own flesh and blood over suspected disloyalty, you know his friends don't stand a chance either. Take Tony Yayo, another GeoNet member. For years, Yayo was 50's right-hand man. But even he wasn't immune. When rumors of disloyalty came up, whether true or exaggerated, 50 didn't hesitate to call him out in public.
If you don't do it, like if I don't give him something that he wanted murder, he's gonna go back to doing what we did. You remember saying that to me? You don't remember saying that? Yeah, tell him Vlad or cut. I don't want to get into all that.
Yeah. Look better than Vlad. You think you tell me to fuck up?
Yeah.
Nice.
They don't even look like the same dude to be on Vlad.
Stories.
The real shit coming out.
And then there's Young Buck. He played a big role in GUnit's success in the early 2000s. But the moment 50 sensed disloyalty, he kicked Buck out in public and made it a very dramatic exit.
I think that's over. I think that's done. But
What do you mean?
I think his career is finished. You know what I'm saying? And it's because, like, his temperament, he won't actually get himself. Like, right now he's in jail, but knowing who he is from the entire time that he's been around, I don't think he has what it takes to recover from, you know, like, it takes discipline at that point. Because it's when people begin to want to give you resistance. Hip-hop culture is out with the whole image.
Even The Game, who was once GeoNet's hottest member, got the same treatment, and you already know the fallout between 50 and Game was legendary. That's why, when 50 saw that reunion photo of Lloyd Banks and Game, it was the final nail in the coffin. 50 wrote in a now-deleted post, "What do you see when you look at this picture? I see confusion. Maybe it's just me. I'm a Cancer, don't get old with me. I never ask for trouble, but I don't have a problem with it either. I'm different. The question isn't how I feel about it, but how does Lloyd Mack feel? Some things are just better left alone."